Okay, so I'm filming a video today talking about neurotic depression, also known as dysthymia. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I've never really heard that term, but when I look online for neurotic depression, dysthymia comes up. So here is my diagnosis. So I don't want to show the other diagnoses that I had. They're more personal. Talking about depression is a lot more easier because so many people in this world are facing it at this very moment. So let's start off by talking about what the definition of neurotic depression is. So the definition of neurotic depression is a depression in an emotionally unstable person. It is a chronic, mild depression that lasts for a long period of time. It is normally diagnosed about 2 years after feeling depression, and it's normally diagnosed in young adulthood, which is like when I was diagnosed as well. So before I talk about the symptoms, I want to talk about how I was diagnosed and how did that affect me, because I think a lot of people who do watch me, they ask me questions, I want to see a psychiatrist, I want to see a psychologist, I don't know, I'm scared and all this stuff, and so let me just run back through my story. So you might have heard about this before, but when I went on holiday to Australia to visit my mom, and something triggered me very badly, and I ended up cutting all of my a lot of my ankles and a lot of my wrists. And the night I came back home, I was just talking to my dad, and then he saw them for the first time in years. So obviously he was very concerned, and he's like, what's going on? You have to tell me about this. And I cried to him, and I told him about I've been feeling fucking depressed for a really long time, and that I really wanted to see a psychiatrist or get professional help because I wanted to get this weight lifted off my shoulders, to have someone tell me, okay, so this is how you're feeling and this is the reason why and all that stuff, because it was very difficult for me to figure out myself.
3:30.
It's 3:30. And I also told him about being sexually used in a way where I wasn't giving this guy consent, and how that affected me over the summer because it happened right before summer. And he was like, okay, you know what? Tomorrow we're going to get you a psychiatrist. So the next day, we went to the hospital and got myself a psychiatrist. And a lot of people ask, what's the difference between a psychiatrist and psychologist? To my knowledge, a psychiatrist is someone who prescribes medication, and a psychologist is more like someone who just helps you with your diagnosis. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I got a psychiatrist, which, so I knew I was going to be going on medication. So I was also put on antidepressants. I was seeing my psychiatrist every week for a couple weeks already, and he never talked to me about my diagnosis. One day he printed out a little form for me, and he gave it to me, and it said, that form said I had neurotic depression. And I was like, why didn't you tell me that I had neurotic depression? And he was like, well, I didn't want you to search up the symptoms and start manifesting those symptoms into your life. And I was like, oh, okay, you know what, that makes perfect sense. And I respected that, When I heard about my diagnosis, I didn't even look up online about it. I mainly just asked him, and I asked my counselor in school, and my counselor told me, and this is why I felt like I was misdiagnosed, she told me that neurotic depression is mainly a key factor in someone's personality. So the symptoms are, right? Low self-esteem, which I definitely had low self-esteem. Low energy. I had low energy. I think my motivation was very low. Changes in appetite, no doubt. I had really bad changes in appetite. I was eating a lot less than I should have. Poor concentration. That's same with me. I couldn't really concentrate at all, especially in class. And when I came home, I wanted to be motivated, but I couldn't. Hopelessness, 100% me. Sleep irregularities, I would sleep either super late or super early, just weird times where I wouldn't sleep at all. Sleep was just the last thing on my mind. And withdrawing from daily activities, which is more in this extreme case of neurotic depression. I remember she told me, my counselor, which was the one that I was in school with, who I didn't like that much, and she told me that neurotic depression is usually diagnosed to people who have their attitudes very monotone, very plain. And I was like, I must have been misdiagnosed then, because I'm a very especially around people, I'm very energetic. I'm like a squirrel. I just joke around. I don't like to show people my problems, especially the people in my real life. I'm very optimistic. I'm a very positive type person. That's how I always have been. I've always been a positive person. It's just that when I was swallowed in this neurotic depressive state, I just couldn't focus, and that's the problem with it. I couldn't focus on what what I should have been focusing on, which is getting myself better. A lot of people who are diagnosed with neurotic depression, there's like a fairly high chance of developing major depression. And when you already have neurotic depression and you fall into major depression, I think it's called double depression. And taking a step back and looking at my history, I can see where double depression has occurred. It did bother me a lot. Like, obviously, I was very, very depressed, and it was really hard for me to connect to people. I was dissociating myself a lot, sometimes intentionally, sometimes non-intentionally. And before my suicide attempt, which I posted about on the internet, I had one before that. And I think that's really where the double depression came. It came to the point where I was incredibly hopeless. Like, as in, like, I would just lie in my bed and I'd be like, what is the point? Like, what is the point? Like, there was nothing that could make me move. Like, this one saying that my Spanish teacher told me, and it was, the last thing you lose is hope. So I always say, keep having that hope. And the further you can see yourself in the future, the more hopeful you are. Because you can see that there's something to look forward to. And it's like, whether it's a holiday or whether it's going to college or seeing a friend that you haven't seen in weeks, looking into the future and being like, what is there that I can be excited for? What is there that I can be motivated for, you know? To hope for anything. Hope for the change in the world. Hope for the weather to get better. Have this hope, because things can get better. They really can. They of course can. Like, look at me today, and this is what I want to talk about. So, neurotic depression, 10% of the people who suffer from neurotic depression get out of it without any treatment. They learn to get out of it, 10%, which is a low amount. But there's a high percent that develops into major depression, but the majority of the people who are diagnosed with neurotic depression linger in neurotic depression, as in, it's a mild depression, so it's not something that you prioritize, but it kind of stays with you. And it certainly stayed with me for years. Most people who are diagnosed with neurotic depression are only diagnosed if they've experienced those feelings for 2 years or more. So I was feeling those feelings for 2 years or more. So it was 2 years of feeling like shit, man. 2 years. That's a long time. 1 month of feeling like shit is a long time, but 2 years, that's way too long. And the majority of the people who have neurotic depression are just lingering in that space. And I'm telling you, when you see that yourself is a priority, then you will get over this depression. You will help yourself. And the thing about it is that you have to see your mental state as a priority, because it affects your everyday life. It affects your relationships. It affects other people, your work, your passions, your hobbies. And trying to get yourself better and self-improvement is so important, because there was no point in me lingering in neurotic depression and going to school. Like, that's why I'm happy that I'm not in it, because I was still stuck in this weird headspace. And my work was getting crap, my handwriting was getting messy. I started losing my friends because I stopped caring about them. I started getting into fights with my families. I started abusing drugs, abusing alcohol. I started, my self-harm was always kind of there, but it started to get a lot more worse. I started hating myself, and it affected my art. It affected my hobbies, like playing guitar. I didn't touch my guitar when I was super depressed. It affected my physical appearance, as in I was always slouching down, and I was starting to break out a lot. And I remember the first thing, when I went to see my psychiatrist, the first thing he said to me was, "Why are you sitting like that?" Because I'm a very small person, and the way I sit is like this. I always sit like this. I have my arms like this, and I have my legs crossed. And the thing about it is that it's a habit I've always had. I still almost kind of do it to this day. Not as much as when I was in high school. But when I'm in high school, I'm writing an exam, and I have my knees up here. You know, I'm eating food, I have my knees up here. And he asked me, the first day I saw my psychiatrist, he's like, "Why are you sitting like that?" And I was like, "Why not?" And he's like, "Well, you look like you have your walls up. Like, you look like you're trying to protect yourself. You are making yourself smaller than you should be." And I was like, okay. And he's like, "Relax, put your arms out on the chair, and, you know, like, spread your legs, like, give yourself the space that you need." And I was like, you know what? Your body language is so important as well, you know, because when you're looking scared and timid, other people may think that you're vulnerable, may take advantage of that, or people, or I guess it could be the other way around, where they see that you're vulnerable and timid and they might come up to you and talk to you, but like even the way you hold your head really does make a difference. And these are things that I learned just doing therapy and doing counseling. And I haven't really planned the rest of this video, so it's kind of just like all over the place, but like I'm getting it out of my head because I think this may help people who want to seek for professional help, because showing you what I have learned and how it has helped me, and because I'm not in this depressive state anymore where I'm constantly unmotivated or feel hopeless, then I think it could help inspire you guys that if you're stuck in this space, to seek help, because care about yourself, because like I said before, it affects everything around you. Everything around you is affected by the way that you are. So there is no point in trying to fix the tiles of the house when the foundation is already faulty. The main reason why I think that this diagnosis is insignificant to me now is because every morning I wake up early, I'm motivated, and instead of, when the end of the day comes, instead of me thinking, man, this day was so long, I now think, and I go to bed, I'm like, what did I do today? Like, this day has gone so fast. You know, because time goes by when you're having fun, and sometimes now I'm so busy doing things every day that when I go to bed, I'm exhausted because I feel like I have made the day's worth. I made this day the most that I could, and those are the best feelings in life. And that's why I think when I had neurotic depression, that's why my sleep patterns were so bad, because I would sleep for a very long time, wake up, feel groggy, wake up late. Like, my patterns were just so bad because the days felt so long. Like, the days felt so long that I'd rather just sleep, or that I'd rather just not sleep and just like go on the internet and not want to fall asleep. And the reason why I had such problems with sleeping is because I didn't want to lie down and think about my life, because I knew I would break down. I didn't want to lie down and think about that people hate me, or that school is a stress, or that my parents are like this and so and so. So I'd either sleep because I want the day to pass by quicker, or I wouldn't sleep because I would be afraid of getting to the stage of like trying to lie down and then just all these thoughts rushing through me. To the people who are watching this video who are diagnosed with some type of depression or any mental disorder, don't let your diagnosis define you, because right now, neurotic depression is still on that piece of paper. You know, if you look up on my records, it's still on the records. But it's not who I am, and my diagnosis shouldn't have defined me. And I'm old enough now to be like, you know what, this diagnosis does not apply to me anymore, and I'm not going to use that as an excuse, because now when I'm feeling sad, I'm like, why am I feeling sad? And I'm like, you know what, it doesn't matter why I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling sad this very moment, so I'm just going to let myself feel that way. I'm going to allow myself to relax. I'm going to show myself I love myself. And I wish you guys the very best, because it's just a diagnosis on a piece of paper. If you feel like you don't need it, because right now, looking back, I'm like, you know what, I don't think I needed that diagnosis, you know? Like, I don't think I needed that on a piece of paper. I don't really know. This video has, like, been all over the place. I just really wanted to let it out, and maybe this could have helped someone. If it did, like, let me know if you want to hear more about these videos on my journey and how it could also help you as well. So I hope everyone who's watching remembers that there are so many reasons to stay alive. I hope everyone stays lucid and stay alive.